Man, I got to tell you, isn't that the best intro music you could possibly have for a podcast? Thank you to my man, Fareed Haq, for always lending us to that always. We really appreciate it. It is great music. If you don't know my man, Fareed Haq, check him out at fareed.com. He's the man. Absolutely love that guy. Welcome in, my friends. Another 5 minutes with Sean, maybe 10. Again, you know that by the intro music. You know where we are. We are here in the second week of October. Still some pretty unseasonable weather here in Wisconsin. I love it. I hate talking about the weather, but that's always because it's beautiful, right? Anyways, so let's get started on today's show. Today's show is going to be all about silos. Living here in Wisconsin, I see a lot of silos, and I know their purpose on a farm. I get that. That's a good thing. Where they don't belong is in a dealership. And I've done this presentation before, or talked on this at a presentation many years ago, maybe in Tampa, Florida, maybe Orlando, in Florida for sure, maybe 8 years ago. At this point, the concept of a silo at a dealership, service, sales, BDC, even managers and executives, there always seems to be a little bit of a barrier and lack of kind of, look into understanding of, that sort of thing. And most of it is just because of the natural sort of progression of our business. But the dealerships that are getting it right, that are doing it well, are the ones that are really starting to intermingle those departments. Everyone from sales and service know each other. They talk to each other. When I was in sales, our dealership group encouraged it, so we already knew that. That's just part of how we rolled together. But when I first started Chicago, no way, dude. There was a clear division. Don't step back here. Don't go here. But when I went out to Colorado and I met a different way of doing business, I always joke, as you get further west, the more laid back shit gets. And so Colorado for us may as well been California, just as well as laid back as it was, and as what went on. So for us, we were able to just sort of take in, enjoy, and chill out and not worry as much. And so it changes the game a little bit. It opens it up to, and for me, I was in a new dealership, right? So I wanted to get to know the area fast. Best way to do that, drive shuttle. No one ever wants to drive shuttle. I love driving shuttle. You can't be busy every day, especially in the mornings if you wanted to get to work before people got to work, right? Sales opens at 9, services open at 7, 7:30, whatever. I would get in early. I would drive shuttle. I would understand the lay of the land, right? Who was who? Where did these people live? Where did they work? Where did most people go? Was there a common theme or anything like that? Anything you could possibly learn, you could learn from driving shuttle. And so to me, that automatically broke the silo down. And me as an individual, after that time, I never had silos. I knew everybody in the dealership, front to back to front, offices. I was whoever you, if you were in a dealership and I worked with you, I knew you by name, and I got to know everything I could about you in that way. Not that I could about you, but like the commonalities where we had common ground, whether it was ladies upstairs, maybe they like talking about music, guys in the back like talking about NASCAR, executives like talking about golf, sales managers like talking about baseball, whatever it is, right? Try to like find those areas, have common ground with people because you work with them. And at dealerships, we're there all the time. You work all the time. So having those 2 departments, 3 departments, 4 departments all working together, it's awesome, but it's not as easy as it sounds, especially if it becomes a help facilitate jobs, and then you got to like offer things. Now, again, the group I worked at made it very clear, once you sold the car, you went down, you introduced them to service. Hell, you even scheduled their first oil change, right? You built that relationship. Boom, doom, done. That was it. Now, we were just on the starting point at that time. This would have been 2000, 2007, 2008, 2006. We were on the cusp of acquisition from the drive. It was an interesting conversation because especially then, people were still like, whoa, you're going to take away from the ticket. And for us, it was more like, hey, if you've got the ticket, we know what the ticket can be paid for and cost us. take the car in on trade, sell them a new car. That's how we were making it make sense. You certainly didn't want to like get into acquisition before any tickets were run, which didn't make sense anyways, frankly. You should want to know that going in. So when I see silos today, I see a lot of them around BDCs and sales departments, and then I see them around sales departments and sales managers, and then maybe up as high as general manager, or we could just say executive. Because, like, for instance, we're in the CRM business. We help dealers with their CRM. And when you get in that business, when you find out what's going on in there, you see the disconnect from the way sales uses it to the way managers use it to what GMs know about is even being used in the first place. My friends, these are interesting conversations. And you see all that and you think to yourself, shit, this is happening because of the silos of people and individuals and workflow and knowledge base, right? Where did these salespeople learn how to use the CRM? Probably from the sales manager. Where did they learn how to do it? Well, probably from the sales manager before them or when they were salespeople. But who taught them? You see, all of this sort of revolves around here. Managers and executives, GMs and executives, not so much. Managers here, there's no consistency. And then on top of all of that, the question I have back through the silo to silo is who's inspecting what, who's responsible for what. We never had a major head meeting without all the heads. The dealership group that I last worked for when I was in retail, they met when we met as a store. You met with head of service, head of sales, head of new cars, used like all managers were in the room, and I always thought it was very cool, and that's what helped us have that relationship, sales to service. Now, my service department probably wasn't a huge fan of me because I would push and prod and try to get things done quicker through service, but I would also grease the wheel. I'm a wheel greaser. That's how you get past silos, is incentivizing the silo, and incentivizing people to the bottom line is tough because you can't just tie everyone to the bottom net. Then there's no incentive. There just isn't. It doesn't look, a 0.5% of net is after everyone gets their 0.5% of net, doesn't look like net. So again, there's a way to work together with incentive, with activity together, with common goals, with communication and trust. I think communication and trust would be the two most important things to me, because if you have them, everyone knows what's going on and we all trust what's going on. If deals start to happen without the knowledge of other people, or if anyone feels like it's behind their backs, or if it's something to try and undercut or lowball, that's never going to be helpful. Keeping things on the up and up between departments is key, but also encouraging those departments to work together. I mean, shit, even in sales, finance was its own department, sales managers, salespeople, and then over here, off the screen, is the BDC. But in order to be efficient, none of that can be the case. I'm not saying you can't have offsite BDC. I'm simply saying the integration and understanding from BDC to salespeople to managers to finance, it has to be linear. And now it's a fucking silos, in and out of them, in and out of them, in and out of them. And that does not help customer experience. You know it. Silos don't help customer experience. Obviously, everyone has their own responsibility, so don't get technical. I've had this before with this discussion of silos. Don't start telling me about silos have to exist for people to have structure. I get that shit. I'm not saying that structure should not exist, but siloing people by department and keeping them there on islands individually, and God forbid there's any sort of internal competition, not helpful. Not helpful. Silos are not helpful. Today's world right now, as we live and breathe in the car business today, having all BDC, sales managers, GM, and finance all on the same page maybe hasn't even been as imperative as it is today, ever before. Because things are starting to tighten up a little bit, man. And when they get tighter, they get tougher. You got to have the spin. You got to have the way to go. And that's the question. Where will you go? How will you work together? How is it that you can come together as a dealership and eliminate those silos? Lastly, I want to say this. When it comes to promotions, You should be looking at all of your departments to promote into your general manager department. I really believe that. I see that's a question in the comments that have come up recently with some of my friends. And I believe that there are qualified service people in this industry, in dealerships today, that deserve an interview, deserve an opportunity to look into being a GM, because being a GM isn't necessarily about being a great salesperson. It's about being a great communicator and understander of the dealership at wide. I think you can train sales into service way easier than you can train service into a salesperson. That's my math. I look forward to hearing your math. Go out, have yourselves a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll do it all again next week. Thanks a lot.